I don't know since when, but if a woman in her 30s is still in the workplace, unmarried, childless, and doing fairly well in her career, people will start slapping labels on her like feminist or independent woman. For the past 5 or 6 years, everywhere I go, as long as people learn about my relationship and marital status, they pin this independent woman or boss lady label on me. Actually, I personally really deeply resent the strong female lead trope and the feminist rhetoric prevalent in the current mainstream evaluation system. Because I feel that the popular feminist and strong female lead tropes on the market right now are completely just a highly twisted, self-indulgent fantasy state. It's just people getting high on their own delusions without ever considering the feelings of ordinary women. First of all, as an ordinary woman, I can personally feel that for a woman just to maintain her financial independence, just this one thing, she has to give up a lot. For example, over all these years, I've actually wanted to pursue a fulfilling and complete life, but there has to be an order of priority. The first step to personal independence is obviously financial independence, right? Only when you are not financially dependent on others are you qualified to talk about other forms of independence. Otherwise, setting money aside, all talk of independence is total nonsense. For instance, if you rely on someone else to keep you, or sponge off your parents, or resort to scamming and cheating, or rely on someone else's social class to satisfy your so-called independent personality and independent spirit, without financial grounding, all of that independence is bullshit. First of all, as an ordinary woman, I personally strongly support the idea of independent women and feminism, and I also look up to that halo and aura. But remember, I am only looking up to it because I don't have the qualifications to challenge that role or reach that level. I'm not qualified enough, and I can't do it. Because of this vision and guiding light, during my growth, I have been holding myself to a series of relatively high standards, trying to push myself to work in that direction. But halfway through, I realized my mindset had been led astray by public opinion, to the point where for a time, I firmly believed that as a woman, even if you achieve financial independence, after becoming financially independent, you must focus more on yourself and love yourself more. Loving yourself and focusing on yourself meant spending more money on yourself, enjoying life, and indulging in whatever level of luxury you could afford within your capabilities. As for family, parents, social responsibility, and other things, don't talk about them. This is practically what we see and hear everywhere now. Almost all feminist content currently brainwashes us this way. But halfway through, I came to my senses and realized my thoughts had gone off track. For a time, I firmly believed that a person should just love themselves, and loving oneself meant treating oneself absolutely perfectly without considering anything else. For example, if you are financially independent, you shouldn't project a single bit of your money, resources, or attention onto anyone else. Like, don't care about your family, even to the point of cutting off contact with relatives. Don't care about anyone you consider to have a close relationship with, even a spouse or a lover. Just love yourself, focus only on yourself, and blindly indulge in enjoying life as much as possible. If, during this process, you don't get to enjoy a beautiful, luxurious life, say you enter society in your 20s or 30s, go through certain things, and over time realize life isn't going your way and you aren't living the good life, then it must be because your parents didn't provide you a stepping stone, or because you just didn't work hard enough. But I discovered that this isn't true. It's not that you aren't working hard enough, and your parents are not at fault either. It's because the entire societal evaluation system has developed a severe deformity and twisted state. My original concept of feminism came from seeing with my own eyes how the women of my parents' generation lived when I was very young, and how couples operated back then. For the young people who got married in the 70s, 80s, or even 90s, most of whom were born in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, their marriages at that time were very simple and rustic. There's a good old Chinese saying, count back 3 generations, and everyone was a farmer. So at that time, farmers still made up a very high percentage. Even the marriages of my parents' generation that I saw as a child were mostly village marriages. The men with skills went out to work as migrant laborers, and at the end of the year, they would bring all the money they earned back home for the whole family, the elderly and the young to use. The women stayed home to take care of the kids and the elderly, and also had to work in the fields. They were basically running a livelihood while being full-time housewives, taking care of all family social relations and the daily diets and living needs of the children and the elderly. Even though their lives were so bitter, you rarely heard shocking news. For instance, they didn't resent their parents from that era. They were still very filial. They didn't engage in psychotic tiger parenting either, placing all their hopes on the child because they felt they themselves hadn't worked hard enough, thus forcing the child to bear the burden. I rarely saw that kind of extreme tiger parenting back then, or maybe I just didn't encounter it. So my initial, raw concept of feminism came from the teachings by word and example of my parents' marriage from that era. Behind all of that, I could hardly see enjoyment. What I saw more of was giving, sacrifice, eating the bitterness of life, eating the bitterness of the spirit, and eating the bitterness of public opinion. Even though they faced immense pressure, gossip, and hardship, they still gritted their teeth to raise their children, provided for their elderly parents until their passing, and in the end, were left with nothing but an exhausted body. The men were very tired back then, and the women were even more tired. Even though they worked so exhaustingly to raise us 90s, 95s, and even aughts kids, letting us go to college, enter the workforce, become high and mighty people doing jobs where our fingers don't touch spring water, light labor, and living in spotless houses, they still couldn't escape verbal violence. Currently, there is a very popular saying, giving birth and raising isn't considered grace, providing a stepping stone is the real grace. I strongly disagree with this concept, because I think this concept is extremely hypocritical and full of double standards. I want to ask the people saying this, have you ever seen the wretched and exhausted state your parents were in when they were raising you? And have you ever thought about your future children when you are raising them? Will you be able to burn yourself out to nourish others just like your parents did? How many can actually do that? I have always felt that our generation, perhaps these 2 generations and even many to come, is a demographic that has been completely brainwashed and poisoned by extreme, refined egoists. Because we always forget the hardships others endured on their path, and we always use current standards to judge what others did in the past. Take those who blame their parents, saying giving birth and raising isn't grace, providing a stepping stone is the real grace. When I was a child, I saw with my own eyes how hard my parents, other people's parents, and my peers' parents struggled when raising children. They couldn't bear to eat the things they bought, so they gave them to their kids. Even if there were 2 portions, they would give one to the child, refuse to eat the other one themselves, and save it to bring home for the elderly. Often, when fresh food was cooked, they couldn't bear to eat it. They only thought about letting the elderly and children eat, while they themselves filled up on leftovers. There is a trendy phrase online now called forcing oneself to eat bitterness, creating unnecessary hardships. Let me ask you, human nature is naturally drawn to seeking pleasure. Why would something so contrary to human nature consistently appear across Chinese parents? So I believe this is a huge bug in modern society that is poisoning us. Parents burn themselves out as much as possible to nourish their children and provide for their elderly parents, and finally, when they grow old, they suddenly find that the winds of society have shifted and society's evaluation of them is so violent, merely claiming that they didn't provide enough of a stepping stone for their kids. I find it ridiculous. From the parents' perspective, of course, this is incomprehensible. This is exactly why nowadays, whenever the topic of providing a stepping stone is brought up, it resonates across 3 generations. The elderly feel wronged and misunderstood. The young feel they weren't given a stepping stone by their parents, feeling that their parents were unfair and didn't try hard enough for them. The only thing we don't consider is ourselves standing in the middle. Toward our elders, can we burn ourselves out like they did? Toward our juniors, can we provide the same stepping stone that meets the standards we demand? Of course, I also agree with the logic that giving birth and raising isn't grace. Providing a stepping stone is the real grace, but there is a prerequisite. I believe the prerequisite for this statement is that it only applies to those people who operate outside the rules. It does not apply to people within the rules. Because most people live within the rules, and for all the things in the world that are hard to achieve, things we almost think are impossible, they can be easily accomplished if you can bypass the rules. So I think that saying is only suitable for people outside the rules, not for those within them. Having discussed family, let's talk about how independent women and feminism in the context of marriage, gender relations, and lifestyles are poisoning the minds of our generation. Why do I feel so strongly about this? I remember when I was in college, there were many girls around me dating guys from other schools. I remember very clearly one time when we were out shopping and eating with a girl, and she talked the entire way about how well her long-distance boyfriend treated her. It wasn't even across provinces, it was just across cities. The main content of her talk was that the guy would send her a massive snack gift box every week, obviously bought online, or he would go to a supermarket in his city, pack it, and mail it directly to her dorm. This guy would send her red envelopes, cash, and buy her gifts every week, and the gift would arrive with the snack box. Of course, this was just on ordinary days. Holidays go without saying, plus there were anniversaries, 1-month anniversary, quarterly anniversary, half-year anniversary, 100-day anniversary, 1-year anniversary. There were tons of these anniversaries. Students are quite romantic, after all. Every month, this guy would travel from his city to her city just to wash her underwear and socks. This girl said that all the clothes she wore, from the inside out underwear, panties, socks, and all her outerwear for all 4 seasons, were completely covered by this guy, including her phone, jewelry, bags, accessories, everything. Even her phone bill was paid by him. That guy remembered all of her preferences, including her favorite fruits, the lipstick shade she liked, her preferred cosmetic brands, and which salon and which specific hairstylist, Tony, she liked going to. All of this was on a list he was intimately familiar with. It felt like when that guy was dating, he put the kind of effort into it that one would use to study for a master's or a PhD. If love were an academic pursuit, that guy could definitely achieve postdoc status. What I want to discuss here is not how romantic their love was, but how such values influenced the ordinary women around them, and of course, I was one of those ordinary women. When I heard her talking about her love life back then, I thought that the romance of love and a man's love for a woman should look exactly like that, giving absolutely everything. But when I looked back at the long-distance relationship I was having at the time, I realized I hadn't even had a single cup of milk tea bought by him. Ultimately, when girls discuss these things, it inevitably leads to comparison or exchanging information. After I shared my information, the conclusion I got was that I was a money-losing good, something of no value. I wasn't loved enough, I wasn't worthy of being loved, and I was being freeloaded off of. To be honest, hearing those words at the time didn't feel good at all. The girl sharing her romantic experiences with me looked very ordinary, but standing there, from her packaging, outward appearance, to her speech, mindset, and everything, if you looked, listened, and understood closely, you'd realize she was indeed a high-maintenance piece of work. In a man's concept, this girl was very expensive. She burned cash. Then a girl next to us drew a conclusion that was almost beyond my comprehension. She said the reason that girl looked average but lived so well was because she had a high sense of entitlement. A girl with a high sense of entitlement will always be cherished by men. If a man doesn't spend money on you, it's because he doesn't cherish you, and you are just a woman anyone can use for free. Love is entirely not worth mentioning. Only love paid for with money can be measured. That was the value system regarding love that I was exposed to at 18 or 20. So in that setting, hearing that kind of story and contrasting it with my own, I really felt inferior, a true sense of being lesser than. Furthermore, when that girl was describing it to us, showing off her romance and happiness, she showed deep contempt for girls like us. So in that social setting, people in our situation truly felt inferior, felt deep insecurity, and during that triggering process, it was easy to be treated as a loser by others. Later on, when I started working, I encountered similar situations. Many female colleagues with a monthly salary of over 3,000 renminbi, about $420, dressed exceptionally beautifully, carrying bags that I could only afford after saving up several months of my salary. They never had bare nails. They always had those gorgeous manicures fully encrusted with rhinestones. They always smelled fragrantly from miles away, their daily outfits never repeated, and they never missed their morning milk tea and afternoon Starbucks. On weekends, they ate aesthetic, Instagrammable meals, and their WeChat moments were always filled with 9 photo grids checking in at tourist spots. Anyway, they were either out shopping and buying things, traveling, or on vacation resting. Only wage slaves like us looked like country bumpkins. One piece of clothing worn this year would be worn next year, the year after, and even 5 years later you could still see the same exact shirt on us. When going out to eat with guys, we still split the bill, AA, or paid the check just like men do. It's a situation where your income is clearly several times higher than theirs, yet your quality of life is completely inverse to theirs. When no one is speaking, in an unfamiliar environment, when you stand next to them, they look like white-collar workers with a monthly salary of over 10,000 renminbi, about $1,400, while you, standing beside them, look as drab as a country bumpkin fresh out of the village, with nothing to your name except sheer stubbornness. One type of person might rely on parents or sponsorship from others, using their meager income without considering future risks or their ability to withstand future life shocks, blindly focusing only on the present and living a very refined lifestyle. The other type has no parental support and no other source of funding, relying solely on their meager income, taking 80% to 90% of that meager income to put into savings to build a fortress against future life risks, using only 10% of their income to barely sustain their current life. Naturally, one is glamorous and shiny, while the other is poor and looks shabby. So, when these two types of people are in the same social setting, you all know who naturally gets despised, looked down upon, underestimated, or met with cynical ridicule. It's that honest girl who looks like a country bumpkin. In my initial scope of understanding, I thought this was a good trait. A person should be financially independent, and financial independence should be fought for with one's own 2 hands. For example, using your own hands to get a job, regardless of whether the income is high or low, learning to save, and learning to build a firewall against risks for your life. Only when you have a foundation are you qualified to pursue a bit of spiritual independence, a bit of ideological and soul independence. Only then do you deserve to talk about it. Otherwise, you don't. But often, people like this get slapped with labels like lacking romance, hick, or unsophisticated straight girl. These unflattering labels are all stuck onto people like us. Anyway, any woman who has nothing to do with being flashy and showy will be lumped into the country bumpkin category and discriminated against, even by the same sex. This phenomenon is actually quite similar in every circle. Take schools, for example. Some schools are elite academic schools. In that circle, teachers care about grades, students care about grades, and everyone uses high marks and good academic performance as a standard of judgment. Naturally, everyone will think that studying well, getting high grades, and being well-behaved are good qualities. But if we change the setting, especially to a poorer school or some lower-tier schools, in that circle, those who perform poorly academically, those who are playful, mischievous, and cause trouble will be called having personality, having potential, or being smart but using it in the wrong place. So in some circles, some rather twisted circle systems, this kind of person is actually more highly sought after and recognized. If we apply this to the evaluation system between the sexes, personality and a sense of responsibility are ignored, and people only focus on superficial, external things. For example, are you pretty? Is your figure good? How many flashy things do you have on you? How well do you know how to play? How well do you know how to enjoy yourself? Then your life is considered wonderful. Undoubtedly, the current societal wind is blowing exactly this way. Those whose social media feeds are the flashiest, who dress the most flamboyantly, who doll themselves up the most, who brag the most, who speak without thinking, who completely ignore the future, and who have absolutely zero sense of responsibility. These are the people who are making money the fastest right now and living the most comfortably. They might even climb faster in certain fields, like in their careers or professional lives. Conversely, those who are solely focused on pursuing good character, responsibility, and thinking deeply about the future often end up living miserably in the current societal evaluation system, because they get killed off by the present before they even reach the future. Some people harm others to benefit themselves, spend their parents' money, take advantage of others, do things with zero moral bottom line, and yet live glamorous lives. While some people rely on their own two hands to fight for their lives yet end up utterly destitute. Between these two types of people in the human value system, there is no doubt that in this current era, the first type definitely lives a very comfortable life, because seeking pleasure is human nature. Everyone wants to seek pleasure, everyone wants to just walk away from trouble. Because only when you just walk away, only when you seek pleasure, only when you focus on the present without considering the future, only when you act recklessly, only when you avoid taking responsibility, avoid delivering outcomes, and avoid considering the consequences of your actions, only then can we do things with absolute abandon. But often, many people can't get past their own moral hurdles to do this. They simply can't do it. This leads to why many people nowadays think too much and become depressed. People who still hold a sense of responsibility toward life will live very exhaustingly, to the point where they halt in their tracks when it comes to settling down and getting married. They are afraid. They are afraid that once they step into that pool, they won't be able to bear the burden of their future children's lives, won't be able to bear their future partner's life, won't be able to bear the heavy load of a family, and won't be able to fulfill the tasks assigned to their role by society. So they stall. But while stalling, they see others getting married and establishing careers, see the warm lights of thousands of homes, and feel incredibly lonely themselves, feeling that life is quite meaningless. Then they turn around and look at another kind of person. They get married just like that. They date just like that. They switch through several partners just like that. They find a mistress today and a fourth lover tomorrow. They seem to never ever consider a sense of responsibility, never ever consider the delivery of future results. They only consider whether they are getting their thrills right now. That's why I hate the current feminism. I hate the current boss lady trope. I hate the current mainstream values. And I hate this current state of survival that forces our left and right brains to constantly fight each other. But hating it is useless unless we allow ourselves to turn bad. If we can't bring ourselves to turn bad, then we can only endure the pain and agony and move forward, waiting for the day when the light finally arrives.
我92年的，今年34岁了。
I was born in 92 and I am 34 years old this year, currently unmarried. Today, I suddenly thought of a question. My friends, do you think I have missed out on the best marriage destiny of my life? Why? Because now I want to get married. Some friends might ask, did you not want to get married in the past few years? No, I didn't. At least before 2026, I didn't want to get married. You might ask why I didn't want to get married. The answer is very simple. I had a very negative view of marriage. This negative thought of mine was actually quite scary, and it stemmed from me scrolling through TikTok, Douyin every day. My values were influenced by scrolling through TikTok. Actually, the influence from friends was minimal. Most of it came from TikTok. On TikTok, there are always people complaining that after getting married, The worries in married life are more numerous than the leaves on a tree. Getting married is one thing, but after having a child, life basically becomes a total mess, and then your life just falls off a cliff. When I heard this, I thought, oh my God, if marriage is like this, I really wouldn't dare to take even a single step into it. I'd rather be discriminated against like this, be called an old spinster by others, and I would absolutely never get married. That was my mindset at the time. Not just at that time, but for the past few years, my mindset had always been like this. Starting this year, after the Lunar New Year, my thoughts changed. Why did this thought suddenly change? It's because I felt I had a sudden epiphany. I don't know if you've ever had this kind of life experience, where suddenly you just figure out a certain problem or situation on your own. What did I realize? Didn't I say that I didn't want to get married because I was influenced by these negative thoughts? And where did my negative thoughts come from? They came from me frequently scrolling through TikTok. I realized that happy people don't post on TikTok. Happy people don't post on WeChat moments. The ones who speak up and complain are the unhappy ones, the divorced ones, the ones who are not living a happy life. It just so happened that I kept coming across these unhappy, complaining people while scrolling. I kept scrolling and watching, and my inner projection formed a vicious cycle where I felt that getting married was like jumping into a fire pit, and I absolutely could not get married. This caused the days to pass by too quickly, like flipping the pages of a book, and in the blink of an eye, here I am, 34 years old this year, still single. After I had this realization post-New Year, I felt that there are actually quite a lot of happy people in the world, and getting married is still a viable option. Because I think that not getting married is not the way to solve problems. If I get married and truly end up unhappy, there are many ways to resolve it, but choosing not to get married is definitely not the best answer. Now I have completely thought it through. I want to get married. However, I am already 34 years old. Tell me, do I still have any value in this marriage market? Think about it, at 34, finding someone my age, around 34 or 35, I think is very difficult. Guys who are a bit younger won't fancy me, and guys who are a bit older are almost all divorced with kids, which I definitely don't want either. So I am thinking to myself, even though I have changed my mind now and want to get married, is the reality of the situation that I am destined to grow old and die alone?
And before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. Connecting with viewers from all around the world is a huge inspiration for us. Thank you so much. In the future, there will definitely be many girls who won't be able to get married. Don't laugh, you won't be able to get married either.
Why?
Really, don't rush to attack me. The viewpoint I'm sharing today will 100% offend a lot of girls, but I have to tell the truth. Don't naively think that nowadays only guys can't find a wife. I'm telling you, the reality is that many girls can't find a husband either. Because in today's society, where there are more men than women, many people think, I have great conditions, I'll just be picky. When I've had enough of picking, I'll just wave my hand and a bunch of men will marry me. Sister, you are really too naive. Nowadays, when many girls are dating, they always demand that the guy has a car, a house, and savings. At the same age as you, do you have those things yourself? On what grounds do you demand others to have them? With this requirement alone, you've directly passed on 55% of men. Let me tell you, for the remaining 45% of men, what are their requirements for a partner? They also require girls to have good looks, a good figure, educational qualifications, to be presentable in public and skilled in the kitchen, and to be able to make money. Can you do that? You also have to respect and care for their parents, right? So, sisters, take a look in the mirror and see if you can meet these conditions. There are also many girls who earn 2 or 3,000 yuan a month, about $280–420 US, yet they constantly look down on boys who only earn 7 or 8,000 yuan a month, about $981,120 US. They don't earn a single cent themselves, let men pay for all their daily expenses, are total freeloaders, and even ask their parents for money, while constantly fantasizing about finding someone with great conditions. What about you? On what grounds? Just based on that face of yours? You are really overly confident. I'm telling you, when you are not excellent yourself, how could those excellent men possibly be interested in you? When you are choosing others, others are also choosing you. I believe love is always mutual. What you want, the other party can't give, but the other party has never even looked twice at you anyway, which endlessly creates leftover men and leftover women. Do you know what kind of boys are also out there? It's those who have nothing themselves and the girls have nothing either, and then they look down on each other and finally, they are all left on the shelf. So, Sister Shaw sharing this today is truly for the happiness of you girls. I sincerely advise everyone, don't rely on having a bit of beauty and just squander your youth recklessly. Even more so, don't pin your dreams for the rest of your life on a man. I'm referring to houses, cars, and savings. Because I am also a woman, and I have always been working hard. Why do I work so hard? It's because I hope that in the future, my husband can enjoy my house and my car, and I won't need to covet his things. I want to be able to strive together with him, work together for this family, and ease his burden in life. I feel that men are quite pitiful nowadays. Don't put all the pressure on men. Men are human too, and men also need to be cared for. Why should men be the only ones to earn money? Women can earn it too. So girls, we must be a bit more clear-headed, set higher standards for ourselves and lower our demands on the guys. Then this world will treat you kindly, and you will meet a good man. My dear friends, I don't know what you think of the viewpoint Sister Shah shared today, but welcome to leave a message in the comment section.
Are you breaking up with someone just because she asked you to treat her to a meal? It's not about one meal, but realizing we are incompatible after being together. How are you incompatible? You work at a car company with an annual salary of 350,000 renminbi, about 49,000 US dollars. You own a fully paid off house and car, and both your parents work in the government sector. Your job is just a bit busy. Meanwhile, this girl works in a public institution where the job is very relaxed, she has weekends off, and her parents also work in state-owned enterprises. If you two are together, there's no financial pressure, and someone can take care of the family. Isn't that great? That's exactly why I liked her so much at first, and it took me a grueling 3 months to finally win her over. But after we got together, I discovered she actually lives paycheck to paycheck. Not only does she spend every penny of her monthly salary, but when it's not enough, she even asks her mom for a subsidy. She's the only daughter in her family. Isn't it perfectly normal for her parents to spoil her a little? Once you are together, you could just talk to her properly about this issue, and she could just save a little when she gets paid next time. That's exactly why I wanted to break up with her even more. Because I've already told her all those things, and she just found my meddling too annoying. So my thought was, she can spend her own salary however she wants, and it wouldn't matter if I just earn money to support the household myself. But when we had been together for a month, during a holiday, she brought her best friend along, saying she wanted to introduce me to her friends. Seeing there were more people, and I didn't know what her friends' tastes were, I figured it was hard to order a la carte, so I told them I had already bought a group discount meal voucher online. Then, when the waiter came to verify the voucher, he told us that we could get free drinks if we checked in on social media. I asked if they wanted drinks, and they said yes. So I said they should check in too, as it was just a simple tap. As a result, her face immediately dropped, and after we finished eating and went back, she picked a huge fight with me. Wait, what were you fighting about? She said I was too stingy and cheap, using a discount voucher in front of her friend, which humiliated her. I totally disagreed. I pay for all our usual food, drinks, and daily expenses. When her friend came to eat, I didn't suggest splitting the bill. I just treated them outright, and yet I'm the stingy one. She then said that ever since we got together, I've been constantly policing her spending, making her very uncomfortable. Well, what kind of spending did you police? It's just that she often goes out to eat, orders a bunch of dishes she can't finish, just so she can take photos. So when she was ordering, I would cancel a few dishes, and she would complain that I'm stingy and controlling. I felt that by controlling her spending, I was well-intentioned in trying to get her to save money, but she felt I was manipulating her. When I stopped controlling her and just practiced frugality myself, oh man, she again complained that I was an embarrassment. That just proves our core values clash, so breaking up is the only option. Let me ask you, are you relatively bothered by the girl not having savings, fearing you'd carry that into your marriage? What bothers me is not that she has no savings. What bothers me is that she is 30 years old and has absolutely no sense of risk management. Even if you don't get married and have no savings, what will you do if you get sick? What will you do if your parents get sick? Living paycheck to paycheck is entirely a manifestation of a person having no responsibility or accountability toward life. Yet she argued that life is short, only 30,000 days, and one should enjoy it while it lasts. I said, if I acted like you, if I bought a motorcycle whenever I wanted, topped up money for games whenever I wanted, asked friends to go traveling on every day off, and bought sneakers every other day, would you still be with me? How did she answer? She didn't say a word. But even without her saying it, I knew the answer. If I dared to blow through my money the way she does, she absolutely wouldn't give me a second glance. Furthermore, the reason she dares to spend every penny is simply her mindset that before marriage, her mom will bail her out, and after marriage, she can rely on her husband. A highly educated person who can't even be self-reliant, constantly acting like a parasite sucking blood from others, and actually thinking it's completely justified. I simply cannot accept this kind of mindset. What I care about is never how much income or savings a girl has, because I've always believed that supporting the family is the man's job. even if her income isn't very high. As long as she can work hard with me after marriage and manage our small family, that's enough. So what I only care about is whether the girl has a good upbringing and knows how to build a life. But now, through this issue of her spending every penny, I have seen her parents' bottomless spoiling, seen the girl's own selfish and cold-blooded nature, and even more so, seen the twisted values of her entire family. So no matter what, I will never stay with this kind of girl. So, do you all think the guy's judgment makes sense?
我坚定了一个想法，就是结完
I am firm in one thought. Even after getting married, I still need to maintain an appropriate distance from my partner. Let me state the premise first. I just had my wedding, and our relationship is relatively stable. When I am with him, I am very happy. If we want to eat junk food today, we'll eat it. Tomorrow we'll make a hot pot. The day after, we'll order barbecue for a late-night snack. Snuggling on the sofa together, watching TV, chatting, and eating is indeed very joyful and indulgent. But I also honestly realize something. As long as I spend a long time with him, I don't really want to be on camera, and this includes no longer caring about my figure and appearance. When we eat together, he always says, "It's fine, eat up, you're not fat. You will always be the most beautiful in my heart." Besides that, I also naturally slip into a family mode, which is quite terrifying. I start enjoying cooking, grocery shopping, and taking care of him. Not long ago, we bought a coffee machine for the house, and I started picking out filter papers, filter screens, a knockbox, coffee cups, all these bits and pieces. I sat on the sofa and spent a solid 2 hours just picking them out. To me, those 2 hours are more than just 2 hours. I could have used them to write, to shoot a commercial, or it could have been time I used to earn money. I suddenly realized that it's not that many girls don't want to grow or lack ambition, but once your energy is fully occupied by too many domestic details, it becomes very difficult to devote your complete attention to yourself. The shampoo is out, the tissues are out, the counter is dirty, the toilet needs scrubbing, the floor needs mopping. Of course, these are very, very small things, but if two people live together, you'll find that these things multiply and gradually fill up your entire brain. When living with my husband, the most annoying thing for me isn't that he's unwilling to do chores. If you ask him to do it, he will, but if you don't say anything, he never knows to take the initiative. After washing up, he will never conveniently wipe down the counter. If you don't tell him to scrub the toilet, he might never scrub it in his entire life. Not to mention the floor. To avoid mopping, we bought a robot vacuum. But the problem is, times have changed. I have my own work, too. I can't always be the problem spotter, assigning tasks. Recently, a good friend of mine ran into some issues and is temporarily staying at my place. The state of living with her is completely different from living with my husband. Actually, we used to live together when we studied abroad, and at that time I wrote a sentence. I said I feel that people of the same sex are more suited to living together. Of course, this statement has a very important prerequisite. It doesn't mean any two random girls living together will be comfortable. It means you must understand each other well enough, and your living habits and pace of life must be relatively similar. She and I have known each other for over 10 years, and we are extremely familiar with one another. Living with her recently, I have felt a very comfortable order to life that I haven't experienced in a long time. We both like working out, so we discuss what exercises we did today, where we are sore, and where our form was off. We both have certain standards for health, so we can eat diet meals together without worrying if the other person will find the taste too bland. Moreover, we both get our periods, so when the other is feeling unwell, we naturally offer more care, in diet, emotionally, and in daily life. There is also a magical sense of empathy. The understanding between women doesn't require extra translation. More importantly, living with her, I feel my quality of life has significantly improved. The house is always sparkling clean, the smell is pleasant, and our habits are on the same wavelength. Yesterday, after using the bathroom, I noticed the toilet paper had run out, but when I opened the cabinet, she had already stocked it with newly delivered tissues. A moment later, my fridge was filled by her with newly bought electrolyte water. I was quite touched at the time, because if I were living with my husband, chances are I'd forever be the one restocking the fridge. If the toilet paper ran out, he'd order rapid delivery for me, and I'd have to sit on the toilet waiting for the delivery to arrive. Lately, I've been thinking constantly that compared to being tied to my husband for long periods, I seem more suited to living alone, or living with a female friend who is highly in sync with me. My marriage is currently in a quite harmonious state. If I want to improve the stability of my career, present a better image, or want my life to be more orderly, then I need an independent environment even more. We actually got our marriage certificate a year ago, though we just recently had the wedding. Over this past year, we've only spent about 7 to 10 days together each month. I used to wonder if interacting this way would be bad for a married couple, but I find this pace to be just right. It allows us to maintain more of the freshness of the early dating stage, while also giving me more time to quietly think, work, exercise, and do the things I truly want to do. Of course, he can't completely accept it right now, but I am very comfortable. I feel that whether you are married or dating, maintaining the mindset of an independent individual is a particularly precious thing. The years when a girl truly grows the fastest are actually between the ages of 25 and 35. These few years are very short and pass exceptionally quickly. If you completely throw yourself into a family too early, handing over most of your energy to chores, your partner's trivial matters, or various life responsibilities, I think it's truly a bit of a loss for this stage of life. I completely understand why many girls don't want to enter marriage at this stage. It's not that they don't believe in love, nor are they selfish. It's just that they clearly can live better alone, even live more freely, more orderly, and keep moving upward. They don't need to put themselves on a society default timetable, nor into a relationship that may not even suit them. At this point, you definitely have a question. Since you are so independent, why do you still need to get married? I do indeed need the emotional support brought by an intimate relationship, and I also need a personal domain that isn't swallowed up by the relationship. Because it is undeniable that emotionally I truly need this kind of belief and support. To me, he is a bit like another version of myself. It's like when I'm doing something, there are always two little voices fighting in my head. He's like that other voice in my mind. So, I feel the two of us are quite suited for marriage and starting a family. But that doesn't mean everyone needs to enter a relationship. Whether it's marriage or dating, neither is a standard answer to life. It is merely a choice made under a certain need. Why was I so scared before? Why did I fear the concept of marriage? It's because you really see a lot of people slowly lose themselves after getting married. Someone who used to be so vibrant, so expressive, and so full of vitality after entering marriage gradually becomes someone who only talks about household affairs, partner issues, and kids every day. It's really quite off-putting. But I think these things can't be entirely blamed on them or us, because many times it's not that you actively choose to give up on yourself, but rather the environment affects you little by little. There are just too many things that cannot be independently chosen or decided by you. You are pushed forward by circumstances. At first, you deal with one thing, then it turns into dealing with many things, and eventually, you slowly lose the time to deal with your own things. So this is exactly what I was most afraid of happening before getting married, and it is also the thing I must protect at this current stage. I must have an independent space. That space doesn't mean a physical house. It might just be a fixed block of alone time, having your own work, your own friends, a life rhythm that isn't disturbed. In short, you must have a space that allows you to quickly return to yourself. Only then will you no longer be afraid of entering a relationship, because this relationship won't be able to have too massive of an impact on your life.
我昨天看评论的时候发现有一个
Yesterday, when I was reading the comments, I noticed a netizen asking me, how could someone as clear-headed as you get divorced? Originally, I wanted to reply, it's exactly because I'm clear-headed that I got divorced. But I felt that just sending that out might cause misunderstandings, and I thought it would be good to actually talk about it out loud. Actually, the reason for my divorce is a textbook example of think it through before you get married. First of all, I am a person with relatively low body fat, so I easily get cold. But my ex-husband is a big, heavy guy who sweats easily. Like in this season, his bedroom air conditioner has to be set at 24 or 25 degrees Celsius, but I am the type of person who doesn't need the AC to sleep unless it's around 30 degrees. So, every summer, we could never get along. Our body temperatures were just different. I tried letting him turn on his AC while I cover myself with a thick blanket, but my head had to stick out, and I would get a headache. We couldn't eat together either. He likes sweet food. He puts sugar in his porridge, sugar in dishes, sugar in tofu pudding, and squeezes ketchup into his rice. I, on the other hand, love spicy and salty food, love Chongqing hot pot, love all things numbing and spicy, and love making dumplings. He doesn't like any of these. He loves eating fatty meat, while I can only eat chicken and beef. I don't know how to cook other meats, and I can't stand the smell of them either. This really isn't just a habit. It's purely my physiological makeup. I've been like this since I was a child, and I know it's quite a buzzkill. When resting, he likes to invite friends over, play board games, do escape rooms, play cards, or stay at home playing video games and scrolling through short videos all day long. But when I'm resting, I happen to hate looking at my phone the most. I like being alone, taking walks, reading books, singing, and just spacing out. That makes me very comfortable. I don't like pretending to be close to casual acquaintances and going out together. I don't need company. I am a person who deeply enjoys solitude. But he couldn't quite understand my inner world. He just thought I was a homebody, boring, and didn't know how to have fun. In the summer, he liked to hoard cold drinks. More than half the fridge was filled with sodas and popsicles. Do you know what my only drink is in the summer? Plain water with lemon slices. I don't even add honey. We couldn't even cheers like bros because we had nothing to clink. We couldn't even laugh together at jokes. We were lucky if we didn't end up arguing. He likes dark humor, but my moral compass is a bit high, so sometimes I felt he was being somewhat offensive, but he would just think, "Are you overreacting?" I am a clean freak and extremely afraid of mess. Nothing can stop me from washing up and changing my clothes head to toe every single day. When I finish using something, I absolutely must put it back in its original place, otherwise, I feel incredibly uncomfortable. There can be no smell of smoke in the house, towels cannot smell sour, and no shoes other than indoor slippers are allowed on the floor. Hair doesn't need to be washed every day, but if it gets greasy or has dandruff, I absolutely cannot tolerate it even a little bit. If my partner has it, I can't tolerate it either. Of course, as luck would have it, he really did. And to accommodate me, he also changed and washed his underwear every day, but the irony was that even though he washed them every day, they always smelled sour. When my clothes touched his clothes, mine would smell sour too. I really couldn't stand it at all. All these things I'm casually mentioning aren't huge deals, but they're living experiences you go through every minute and every second. I know you might be curious. Since we couldn't eat together, sleep together, play together, drink together, or even laugh together, why did we get married in the first place? Because before I got married, I didn't understand what think it through before you get married truly meant. We didn't live together before marriage, so I didn't realize that what temperature the AC is set to is actually a big deal. When we were dating, we always ate out. We didn't have to cook or buy groceries, so I didn't feel that having different tastes was a big deal. Before getting married, as long as we could see each other, we were very happy. We never thought about whether we could actually have fun together. I knew before that he liked drinking sodas, but at that time, I didn't have a fridge of my own. But after I had a child, when I opened the fridge to grab some baby food, I had to shove aside a huge pile of soda bottles first. It was only then that his habit of drinking soda affected me. In the past, my love brain had a filter for men. Even if he farted, it was rainbow-colored. Naturally, I couldn't hear whatever dark jokes he was making. I just simply and naively thought, he's trying so hard to make me laugh. As for other living habits, it was just like the AC temperature. I didn't think that much about it. Because we hadn't lived together, I even foolishly thought none of this mattered, and that we would both definitely change after marriage. In reality, no one can change these habits that are carved into your bones. Finally, when we got our divorce papers and separated, he was 29 and I was 27, the prime of our lives. It was precisely because we were young that I felt we absolutely had to separate because we simply weren't right for each other. It wasn't just a difference in core values, but more of a mutual drain in our daily lives. So I felt I had to be the one to bring it up. I absolutely couldn't drag myself and him down together. I feel that even if we were 39 or 49, as long as I have the ability, I would definitely still choose the path that makes my life more comfortable. Because for the rest of my life, I absolutely refuse to be a bitter, resentful woman. So don't underestimate these small details of life. Everyone says you must think it through before getting married. What does think it through mean? Think about what? How thoroughly should you think? What you need to think about is whether you can accept turning your own living habits upside down. Don't expect someone who is completely different from you in every way to become just like you because of you. If we want to walk hand in hand with someone until we grow old, there are no shortcuts. We must first live our own lives well, fully understand what our own joys, sorrows, and passions are, and only then can we find the other you in this world, and only then can we avoid the pitfalls I've stepped into. The biggest mistake is never the choice to get married and have kids, but rather not fully understanding yourself first. I am truly very grateful to my ex-husband now, because he was my mirror in the past, illuminating everything that didn't belong to me. So after ending that last chapter, up until now, although I have remained single, I have found my true goal for happiness in a high-quality life, rather than in an illusion of what I lack. So don't judge us divorced people with tinted glasses, nor anyone who makes choices different from the previous generation. We are just living lives that make us happy, not putting on a show for outsiders to see. I also wish all my friends happiness, and hope you find your true home soon. We must all be brave enough to pursue and brave enough to let go.
Yesterday, I was matchmaking for a girl born in 1995. I matched her with 3 guys, but by the end of the day, there was absolutely no progress. This girl was born in 1995, unmarried, 1.62 meters tall, weighs about 50 kilograms, has a self-taught bachelor's degree, and works in sales in the main urban area. Her annual salary is 45,000 renminbi, about $6,300, and she has neither a house nor a car. As for her family background, she has a married older brother, her father has passed away, and her mother is currently living with her brother helping to take care of the kids. Those are her conditions. Then I matched her with the first guy, born in 1992, works in a factory, 1.73 meters tall, weighs about 65 kilograms, has a bachelor's degree, and an annual salary of 120,000 renminbi, about $16,800. He has a house on a mortgage but no car. After sending the info over, before I even had the chance to tell her about the guy's personality and family background, she outright rejected him. The reason for the rejection was that the guy was too short. Okay, so I started looking again, and found the second guy. The second guy was born in 1991, is a junior manager in a state-owned enterprise, with an annual salary of 150,000 renminbi, about $21,000. He is 1.72 meters tall, holds a college diploma, and has both a house and a car, both on mortgages. He is an only child, and his parents have pensions. His conditions are quite decent, and he looks like a nice person. I sent all this information to the girl. She said the guy seemed okay and asked me to send a photo. As soon as I sent the photo, she rejected him again, saying he just didn't catch her eye. Then I started making calls frantically, and in the afternoon, I found a third guy. This guy was born in 1990 and runs his own wholesale business for branded goods, making about 200,000 to 300,000 renminbi, about $28,042 a year from his small business. Because he runs his own business, he actually pays quite a bit of attention to his attire, and looks very clean-cut. He is 1.75 meters tall, weighs 70 kilograms, and owns both a house and a car. He has a married older sister, and his parents work in Guangdong and have full social security. I was thinking to myself, this guy is really good, great conditions, a nice person, and his parents aren't a burden. After I sent the details, the girl said she would think about it. I thought to myself, hey, there's hope for this one. But right around quitting time, she rejected me once again. As for the reason, she said that because the boss guy has an older sister, like a sister-in-law figure, she felt it would be hard to get along with her, so she decided not to choose him. I feel like my entire day of work was completely in vain.
当今男性的结婚意愿
Nowadays, men's willingness to marry has plummeted far below that of women. Don't assume that only women are unwilling to get married. Most men are also unwilling to marry. Even as a woman myself, I can't figure out why men should get married. What benefit does marriage bring to a man? For thousands of years, ordinary men married for nothing more than having a woman to do the laundry, cook, and bear children, so that after a busy day, they would have someone to share a blanket and whisper sweet nothings with upon returning home, which addresses domestic, reproductive, physical, and emotional needs. First, regarding domestic needs. Eating can rely on cafeterias, deliveries, and restaurants. Washing clothes can rely on washing machines and dry cleaners, and if the house is dirty or messy, you can hire a housekeeper. To be honest, as a woman who is practically useless at chores and doesn't know the first thing about keeping a house, I can't even do these things well myself, and would have to rely on someone else to do them. Then there are emotional needs. Nowadays, there are far too many ways to make oneself happy, such as binge-watching shows, watching live streams, and playing games. Whether it is finding internet friends to chat with or arguing with them online, it is incredibly easy. In reality, girls in the real world might not necessarily understand you better than your online friends. Okay, next we come to the crucial point, reproductive needs. In traditional Chinese values, great importance has always been placed on carrying on the family line, but men have been taught a harsh lesson by reality over the past few years. In the past, men bore the family mission of propagating the lineage, which is why they had to have children, inherit the family estate, and increase the family population. But in today's society, especially for those born after 2000, this concept no longer exists. The concept of family has gradually weakened to the point where the family has no significance, and there is no need to propagate the lineage for it. Therefore, men have also gradually laid flat, returning to the philosophy that only when you enjoy yourself is it truly enjoyable. The final point, physical needs. Buying sex to satisfy this need is indeed illegal, but modern society is completely different from the conservative old eras. You don't necessarily need marriage. Dating works just fine. Moreover, as people get older, their physical desires decrease. Anyway, the 996 work culture has already exhausted physical desires and even physical functions, so physical needs have also been left to deteriorate. When the aforementioned domestic, reproductive, physical, and emotional needs all disappear, that is the biggest reason why men do not get married. Marriage brings absolutely no benefits. Instead, more and more men are realizing that marriage does not profit them, because men have to pay an immense price just to get married. For example, the financial cost, including bride prices, houses, supporting a wife and children, and providing for the wife's parents and other relatives. At home, he is nothing more than a money-making machine. If a man doesn't get married, he doesn't need to spend this money at all. Then there is the emotional cost, including constantly coaxing a woman, buying her bags and gifts to make her happy, satisfying her competitive nature, catering to her emotions and ego, and sacrificing his own hobbies and interests in the process. If a man doesn't get married, he doesn't need to waste energy on these things at all. Now the ones who want to get married more are women, because women can benefit from marriage. Likewise, women can also benefit from having children. The reason is that women pin their hopes on having children to raise their social class. How many women dream of marrying into wealthy families? How many women hope their partners will spend more money to satisfy them? How many women hope their blind date will help them pay off their online loans? How many women hope their sons will stand out in life? How many women demand more urgently than their husbands to send their children to after-school tutoring classes? A few years ago, when private tutoring and cram schools were prevalent, someone did the statistics. The vast majority of people signing their children up for these classes were women. Men actually don't care about their children's grades at all, and are more willing to free-range raise them, because they feel that no matter how hard the child tries, it is very difficult to rise to a higher social class, and spending energy on tiger parenting to gamble on their fate is simply not worth it. But women just hope to rely on others to change their own destiny, first hoping in their parents, then hoping in their boyfriends, then hoping in their husbands. And after giving up hope on all of the above, they start hoping in their sons and daughters. In short, they hope in everyone except themselves. Therefore, for ordinary people, both men and women are just beasts of burden, and beasts of burden should be able to empathize with one another rather than mutually draining each other. Therefore, stop generating opposition between men and women.
美女泛滥成灾，懒汉光棍遍地。
A flood of beauties, and a landscape full of lazy men and bachelors. Under the impact of AI, where should the 130,000 extras in Hongdian go? Recently, a complaint from the famous actress Yang Zi sent the current situation of Hongdian onto the trending searches, bringing the name Hongdian back into everyone's view. But to be honest, today's Hongdian is no longer the bustling dream factory that everyone imagines. Let's take the Green Mango Studio in Hongdian, which is specifically used for shooting short dramas, as an example. After the Spring Festival this year, this place has become unbelievably deserted. In the past, the villa sets used to shoot domineering CEO storylines cost 5,800 renminbi, about $812 a day to rent, and even then demand exceeded supply. Now the studio has voluntarily discounted the rent to 3,980 renminbi, about $557. Yet 2/3 of the studio remains completely empty. Other popular short drama shooting locations in the Hongdian area, such as Hongdian Xintiandi and Huaxia Culture Park, similarly face the awkward situation where over 60% of their sets have no productions filming on any given day. Although Hongdian officials later came out to dispel rumors, stating that there are currently still 59 production crews operating in Hongdian. If you rewind the clock about 9 months, Hongdian had 150 short drama crews filming simultaneously. That's an instant drop of nearly 80%. So why did everyone suddenly stop going to Hongdian to film? Ultimately, the reason is that AI has smashed people's rice bowls. Starting from the beginning of this year, AI-generated video technology has become very mature. In the past, if you wanted to shoot a video, you had to find a bunch of actors, rent a location, and set up lighting and cameras. Now you only need to type a passage of text into a computer or upload a few pictures, and within 60 seconds, it can generate a high-definition video that looks just like a movie. Let's do the math. Previously, if you shot an 80-episode short drama, finding actors, renting sets, and setting up lights, no matter how much you skimped, a cost of 500,000 renminbi, about $70,000, was the absolute baseline. But now, using AI to do this job, the cost of 1 second of footage is about 1 renminbi, about 14 cents. Calculated out, it only takes 150,000 renminbi, about $21,000, to get it done. Furthermore, the detail of the footage looks almost indistinguishable from live-action filming. Think about it. If you were the boss funding this, what would you choose? Therefore, the current situation is that among the new short dramas released domestically every day, only a mere few dozen are shot with real people. The rest are entirely produced by AI. What's even more fatal is that many major platforms, like Hongua, canceled their guaranteed minimum revenue policies for live-action short dramas by the end of this month. In the past, platforms would more or less provide some subsidies to guarantee a baseline for live-action dramas. Now that the guarantee is gone, if investors spend 500,000 to 600,000 renminbi, about $70,084,000, to shoot a live-action drama and it flops, they will literally lose their shirts. Under such high risks, funds naturally all run to invest in those cheap and profitable AI productions. With the financial backers pulling their capital, the live-action crews still left in Hongdian are having a thoroughly miserable time. To survive in the cracks, production crews can only desperately exploit the on-set staff. Some directors receive absolute orders that 3 dramas must be completely shot within 4 days, with each drama being 30 episodes. This is equivalent to everyone in the crew only being able to close their eyes and sleep for 2 hours a day. Not only is it physically exhausting, but the crews are also becoming increasingly stingy with their money. Some crews even rush to lump all the scenes involving extras together to shoot them as quickly as possible. Why? Because for every minute of overtime, they have to pay each extra an additional 10 renminbi, about $1.40, in overtime fees. Today's crews are so poor they want to save even this 10 renminbi. In such a harsh environment, the first to suffer are those mid-level actors who originally did reasonably well in the short drama circle. In the past, it was quite easy for them to find work. A crew would just glance at their profile and hire them. Now, not only do they have to audition every single time, but some actresses, in order to snatch a role, will even pay for their own travel expenses and voluntarily offer a 20% discount on their salary. Yet the crew can still find all sorts of excuses not to use them. To put it bluntly, they just turned around and found someone with an even cheaper quote. It's tough for ordinary actors, and it's equally hard for former short drama stars to survive. For example, Wei Bin, the former king of short dramas in Hongdian, shot over 100 short dramas in one go over the past 3 years. However, this year, for over a month straight, he didn't earn a single cent, and for the entire first quarter, he only landed one job. Another actor, Zhang Xiaolei, who specialized in playing domineering CEOs, previously participated in nearly 200 short dramas of varying sizes. During his peak, he could shoot 3 or 4 dramas a month, earning 30,000 to 40,000 renminbi, about $4,205,600 monthly. Yet right after the Spring Festival this year, his schedule went straight to zero. With literally nothing to eat, he had no choice but to run back to his hometown in Qinghai, rent a greenhouse, and start growing vegetables. If even these actors and directors who can show their faces are pushed to this extent, everyone can completely imagine just how desperate the situation is for the 130,000 extras at the very bottom in Hongdian. This place, Hongdian, has always been regarded by everyone as a safe haven that takes in flexible employment groups. Because the requirements to be an extra here are incredibly low. As long as you are between 18 and 60 years old, even if you have no educational degree or skills, you can do it. This attracted a massive number of idle people who didn't want to go screw bolts in factories to come here and make a living. In the past, when the market in Hongdian was good, these bottom-tier extras could get 15 renminbi, about $2.10, an hour, adding up to at least 150 renminbi, about $21 a day. Now it's mostly 90 renminbi, about $12.60, a day for modern dramas, and 100 renminbi, about $14 a day for costume dramas. Moreover, you can't even take all this money home. The actors' union has to take a 10% agency fee from it. In the end, what lands in your pocket might not even be enough for a day's expenses. Hearing this, you might ask, since they can barely afford to eat, why are there still so many extras clinging to Hongdian, refusing to leave no matter what? The answer is actually very heartbreaking, because after staying for so long, they have developed a terrifying path dependency. Many people have drifted in Hongdian for several years, doing mechanically repetitive work every day. When the harsh winter of the industry truly crashes down, it's not that they don't want to leave, but they sadly discover that once they leave this beginner village of Hongdian and enter the real world outside, they shockingly don't even possess a single skill to make a living. Over the past 2 years, during the massive explosion of micro-short dramas, those crews that paid daily in cash indeed extended their lifelines and gave them the illusion that staying still held hope. But they ignored a fatal problem. Short dramas are at the very bottom of the chain of contempt in the film and television circle. No matter how many of these random passerby roles you shoot, they absolutely cannot be written into a professional resume, and they offer no substantive help for being promoted to a featured actor. This ultimately resulted in them not only failing to learn new skills, but instead becoming like rusted gears on a dilapidated machine, completely losing the ability to transition. To make matters worse, the entire film and television industry is currently pursuing industrialization. Production crews need more professional talent. And the popularization of AI technology has directly monopolized the most mechanical jobs. The first batch to be laid off are these living props who possess zero irreplaceability. Of course, this does not rule out that some people stay in Hongdian because they truly love acting. But in the current era flooded with AI, it is becoming increasingly difficult for bottom-tier extras to break through. Just as teacher Zhang Sungwen said, Wang Baoqiang and Zhao Liying were accidental unique masterpieces created by their era. They absolutely cannot be replicated. In short, the era in Hongdian where you could scrape a living just by being willing to kill time and relying on low entry barriers has completely ended. This also serves as a wake-up call to all of us ordinary folks. Whether entering the film industry or doing other flexible gig work outside, If you do not have a hardcore skill that machines cannot replace, then in the face of technological progress, it won't even say hello when it eliminates you.
一定要教孩子分清小恩小
You must teach your children to distinguish between petty favors and core interests. A couple of days ago, I was having dinner with a lawyer friend, and he told me about a case that left a bad taste in my mouth. The case itself wasn't complicated. A young girl, who had graduated less than 2 years ago, was scammed by a shell company. The boss of this company didn't use any brilliant tactics. He just showed routine concern, occasionally treated her to milk tea, paid for her cab when she worked late, and gave her a small birthday gift worth 200 or 300 yuan, about $28.42. The young girl was deeply moved, thinking she had met her talent scout, and lent her ID card to the boss to register the company and become its legal representative. As a result, the company went bust, leaving her drowning in debt, while the boss had long since absconded. My friend sighed and said, "This girl isn't stupid. It's because of her upbringing or lack of life experience that she is completely unable to distinguish between petty favors and core interests." This sentence actually stuck in my mind like a nail. Think carefully. Are cases like this rare around us? Many parents, when educating their children, always emphasize being polite, being grateful, and being kind to others. This is certainly not wrong, but it often neglects a more important survival lesson: interest identification. If you don't teach your children to identify interests, there is a high probability that when they enter society, they will become the leeks harvested by someone else's sickle. Today, let's break this down thoroughly and discuss this topic from the perspectives of economics and game theory, a topic that sounds a bit utilitarian but is actually life-saving. First, we need to clarify why people are easily blinded by petty favors. From the perspective of evolutionary psychology, the human brain actually has a bug. We are extremely sensitive to instant feedback. When primitive humans saw a piece of fruit in the jungle and ate it immediately, dopamine was secreted, and they felt happy. This is a survival instinct. Petty favors are essentially that piece of fruit. Their cost is extremely low, whether it is material cost or emotional cost. A cup of milk tea, a few sweet words, a cheap plush toy. The marginal cost of these things is almost zero. But the emotional value they bring is immediate and explicit. In contrast, core interests are often implicit, long-term, and sometimes even accompanied by pain in the present moment. For example, studying, exercising, protecting your credit record, or defending your personal freedom and dignity. You don't see any returns from these things in the short term, and they might even require a massive sunk cost. When a scammer or someone with ulterior motives tries to exchange your core interests, they will absolutely not just come up and rob you directly. That's too low level. They will exploit this bug in the human brain, using high-frequency, low-cost petty favors to launch a dimensional strike. In economics, this is called unequal exchange. It's exactly like when European colonists went to the Americas back in the day and traded a few strings of glass beads for vast amounts of Native American furs and even land. In the eyes of the Native Americans, the crystal-clear glass beads were a rarity. In the eyes of the colonists, they were industrial waste. The information gap and cognitive gap determined the cruelty of this transaction. If we apply this logic to today's children, it is exactly the same. That street thug buying a grilled sausage for a kid at the school gate. That boss in the workplace who only knows how to paint rosy pictures and hand out small holiday gifts but refuses to raise salaries. That scumbag in a relationship who doesn't spend a single cent and only messages "drink more hot water" on WeChat. They are all using glass beads to exchange for the children's furs, which translates to their youth, labor, bodies, and even their lifelong futures. The reason many children are deceived is that their internal price anchor is set too low. Here we must mention a very heart-wrenching concept called the threshold. If a child grows up relatively deprived both materially and spiritually, with parents who are overly strict, rarely give positive feedback, and rarely give pocket money, their threshold will be extremely low. This is like a stock that has been starved for a long time. The slightest bit of good news one day will make it hit the daily limit up. If someone gives them a piece of candy, they feel it is the greatest kindness in the world. If someone gives them a compliment, they are practically ready to die for their bosom friend. This low threshold state is exactly the physique that attracts terrible people and terrible situations. So, why should we raise children in abundance? This abundance doesn't necessarily mean making them wear designer brands or drive luxury cars. It means letting them see the world, letting them experience what truly good things are, and giving them sufficient security and love. Only when you have seen the vast ocean will you not drown in a puddle at your doorstep. When a child's heart is full, those cheap external temptations have a hard time filling any void. They will have a natural immunity, and they will have an internal calculator. You think you can trade this little bit of stuff for my principles? Dream on. Next, I want to talk about what core interests are. These words sound abstract, but they are actually very concrete. For minors, core interests are the right to education, physical health and safety, and the right to make future choices. For adults, core interests are asset ownership, cash flow, career development paths, and independence of personality. We must tell our children that anyone in this world who attempts to violate your core interests, no matter how nice they usually are to you, no matter how brightly they smile at you, is an enemy. Let's give a very realistic example. If a good friend drags you to play video games all night before every exam, calling it relaxation and brotherhood, buys you in-game skins, and treats you to late-night snacks, making you feel great, their actions are actually destroying your academics, which means destroying your right to make future choices. This is exchanging petty favors for your core interests. At this point, if you can't tell the difference, you'll think this person is very loyal. If you can tell the difference, you'll know this person is either stupid or malicious. This is even more true in the workplace. Some bosses are very good at playing the game. They treat you like a brother, go out drinking and eating skewers with you after work, and complain about company policies with you to make you feel like they're on your side. But the moment it comes to project dividends, promotion quotas, or taking the blame, they will push you under the bus without hesitation. The emotional value they usually provide you, those petty favors, is actually just to buy out your resistance at an extremely low cost during critical moments. This is the logic of raising pigs. Feeding the pigs good food and drink isn't because they love the pigs, but because pork can be sold for money. We teach children not to make them selfish, cold, and calculating, but to teach them to possess a kind of cold, stern compassion. We need to make them understand that the essence of interpersonal interaction is value exchange. A healthy exchange is equal and win-win. I give you an apple, you give me a pear, and everyone is happy. A pathological exchange is an inequality of power and the concealment of information. How do we teach this? Preaching abstract principles is useless. Children won't listen. We have to use language they can understand and let it gradually seep into their daily lives. For example, when taking your child shopping, you can point to the person at the mall entrance giving away balloons in exchange for scanning a QR code and ask them, "Child, do you think this balloon is free?" The child might say yes, and you should tell them, "No, it's not. You bought this balloon with your personal information or a few minutes of your precious time." In the eyes of the merchant, your information is worth far more than this balloon. Or, when reading historical stories, in ancient times, when princesses were sent away for political marriages, the emperor would bestow countless gold, silver, and jewels as a dowry, making it look incredibly glorious. This seems like a tremendous imperial favor and a grand gesture, but what is the core interest? It is the princess's entire life. It is her personal freedom and happiness as a human being. Decoding history from this perspective will instantly help a child understand the concept of a price to pay. Another very important dimension is about saying no. Many children cannot distinguish between petty favors and core interests because they're afraid to refuse. They are afraid of being obligated once they take something from someone. This is actually a form of psychological debt. Bad people are best at exploiting the psychology. They first give you a little sweetness to make you feel indebted, and then gradually raise their demands. This is the famous foot in the door technique. You need to tell your child that for those petty favors you don't want or that clearly have an ulterior motive, the best way to handle them is to refuse from the very beginning. If you accidentally accept one, then return something of equal value as soon as possible. Being even is the safest relationship. Don't be greedy for petty gains, because free things are often the most expensive. Even adults might not understand this principle, let alone children. Many parents of our generation grew up in scarcity, and our subconscious might carry the gene for being greedy for small bargains. Queuing for 2 hours at a supermarket discount, or fighting tooth and nail for a few eggs, these things are very common among the older generation. But times have changed. Society today has more traps than opportunities, and the sickles are smarter than the leeks. If you still hold onto the mindset of the old era, believing that only a fool passes up a bargain, the one who suffers in the end will definitely be yourself. What we need to cultivate in our children is a sense of the big picture. The big picture means being able to look far ahead, seeing the entire situation, being able to reject immediate temptations for long-term gains, and enduring local losses for global victories. When a child with a sense of the big picture faces petty favors, their gaze is clear and firm. They know where they are going, they know what cards they hold in their hand, and they won't forget their journey just because of a wild flower by the roadside. Of course, this is hard. I know it's really hard, because this is not only fighting against the weaknesses of human nature, but also fighting against this impetuous society. But it is precisely because it is hard that it is worth teaching. The essence of education is actually installing a high-level operating system in a child. This system must have a firewall to block viruses, antivirus software to identify Trojans, and above all, precise navigation to point to the future. Distinguishing between petty favors and core interests is the most foundational code in this system. Finally, what I want to say is that parents are the best mirrors for their children. Through the stories of choices and love, the challenges of married life, and the constant shifts of our rapidly changing world, we come to realize one truth. Life has never offered a single, standard answer for everyone. Whether you choose marriage in search of emotional support or embrace independence to protect your personal space, whether you are working tirelessly to build your own career or learning to let go of exhausting connections, the ultimate core remains in truly knowing yourself. We often spend our lives searching for a perfect partner to fill our voids, or blaming the world when things do not go our way. But in reality, neither love nor career can be resilient unless we first build a strong foundation within ourselves. True independence does not lie in the superficial labels of strength imposed by society, nor is it a self-indulgent focus on our own desires. It begins with taking full accountability for our own lives and learning to distinguish between transient temptations and the core values we must protect. Cultivate yourself with a clear mind and a warm heart. When you are strong enough to weather your own storms, you will no longer fear entering or leaving any relationship. Only then does love or marriage cease to be a gamble on fate or a source of mutual drain. Instead, it becomes a voluntary partnership between two independent, self-reliant souls who truly cherish one another. We hope that on your journey to find your own harbor, you will always maintain a clear vision to navigate the world, industrious hands to rely on, and a steadfast heart to remain unswayed by the surrounding noise. Walk on your own path, love sincerely, but always preserve a sky of freedom for your own soul. Thank you for joining Chinese Emotion today. May you find peace and true happiness on the path you have chosen.